Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, energetic leadership guide, psychic medium, and somatic coach for ambitious leaders who know their gifts are real and who want to stand fully in them. Here, you'll learn how to trust your intuition, embody your vision, and step into the freedom you've been craving, all without chasing more certifications or carrying stuff that does not belong to you. Every week, I'll share powerful practices and conversations with thought leaders and changemakers that help you transform your vision into embodied confidence, claim your gifts without apology, and lead with both clarity and freedom. Because your gifts aren't cute, they're powerful, they're real, and they're needed. Start today by downloading my free energy audit at brendawinkle.com/audit. It's the exact tool I use to track what's fueling me and what's draining me. It will help you discern between that hit of achievement and true joy so that you can lead with more clarity and impact. This is your space to stop proving, start embodying, and live fully in your gifts. Welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. Hello, and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. I'm an energetic leadership guide, psychic medium, and somatic coach for spiritual entrepreneurs, intuitive leaders, wellness professionals, coaches, healers, and educators who are ready to lead with more freedom, clarity, and ease. Today, we're going to be talking about something deceptively simple and completely life-changing. It's the power of the pause. Now, if you've been feeling the pressure to move faster, to say yes more often, to figure out everything before you can even breathe, this conversation is for you. Because leadership that is truly sustainable and transformative doesn't come from pushing harder and working faster. It comes from learning how to pause, learning to wait for clarity to reveal herself so that your nervous system can hold more ease, more clarity, more success, and even more income. Maybe this sounds familiar. You wake up and the first thing you do is grab your phone and answer a message before you've even gotten out of bed in the morning. And by the time your workday actually starts and you sit down, you've already scrolled, compared, second guessed yourself, tried to remember 35 different things that you want to do for today, but somehow you just keep telling yourself that you'll slow down a little bit later, but later doesn't seem to come. And between doing the work that you're actually doing on your phone, because your phone is part of your work, and then the accidental doom scrolling that's happening on the phone, it's creating this nervous system loop of stress and pressure. It's not a workable strategy, but it's also not like a moral failing or weakness on your part. It's your nervous system trying to feel safe by staying busy. This is actually a stress response known as fight. So we've talked a little bit about this in previous episodes on the podcast, that our stress responses can look different. This one for fight comes up for a lot of us if we're trying to grow and build different kinds of things. I've absolutely been there too. And a lot of times this is done in an attempt to allow us to feel safe. And when I say safe, maybe I'm talking about physical safety, but more likely I'm talking about emotional safety and body safety, because we have been taught that by staying in motion, by achieving more, by doing more, we somehow are more valuable. And if you're an empath or you have a deep level of empathy and compassion, you feel things from everyone around you all the time, it's easy for you to think that other people also feel things around you all the time. In fact, that's not true. We know from the research that's not true. We know that at max, 30% of the population is highly sensitive. And of those 30% that are known as highly sensitive individuals based on the brain scans, and I'm referencing the research of Dr. Elaine Aron when I reference this, we know that of that 30% that's highly sensitive, there's a very small subset, about 10% of that 30%, that has these empath abilities, the ability to feel and sense emotions from other people around you. So, because this has come so naturally to you for your whole life, where you feel things from other people, you can feel energy. You feel it in your body, you feel emotions, you feel physical sensations, you can even feel physical pain or symptoms from other people in some cases with these abilities, not in all cases, but in some cases. And so, because this is your unique lens, you think that everyone can feel things the way that you do. And that's led to a lot of disappointment where you feel like your needs aren't being met, where you feel like people aren't really seeing you. And the truth is, not everybody has your abilities. Not everybody can feel things the way that you feel so deeply. Not everyone has the level of emotional intelligence that you have. And because of this, sometimes we will work even harder to take care of people because we don't want there to be any sense of discomfort. We want to make sure that we're really doing our part. We didn't want to take advantage of anyone. And so we work even harder. There was a period of time when I was working in my teaching job full time in a public school district teaching music. And that meant I had 10 back to back 30-minute music classes a day, except on the days when I had 12. And I was also running my business very part time, and I was directing the Opera Idaho Children's Choruses at the time, which included three different choirs that I was actually trying to build into four. And when I look back at it, I can see at the time I kept thinking, oh, I'm just going to do more. I'm going to be a bigger contributor. I'm going to help more people. And that was true. But what was also true is I was for sure in a fight response, a stress response that I didn't recognize was a stress response. I didn't know that was what was happening. I didn't know that was what was behind me trying to stay busier and add more and say yes to things. And I was frustrated by how busy I was, but I kept saying yes. And there was one year I had 37 performances in the month of December. In 1 month, I had 37 concerts. 37 in a month. That's more than one a day. I was exhausted. I could hardly move. And every time that I would start to rest, I would feel guilty. I would feel a sense of fear, like it would take over my body. Oh gosh, I can't rest. And I didn't consciously know that I was hustling for my worth, but that's absolutely what I was doing. But the thing that was unexpected was the faster I moved, the foggier things got, the less clarity I had. And when I learned to begin to pause, which mine was not voluntary, I did not like learn to pause because I was like, oh, I'm going to learn to pause. That's not how that worked. What happened instead was I had a major health crisis, a life threatening health crisis, where I had ignored severe abdominal pain and ended up very, very, very sick in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 days with no food or drink by mouth while my body stabilized enough to have the life saving surgery. So when I say I was sick and I was in a fight response, I mean, I was really in a fight response and it almost killed me. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. It was really profoundly life changing because what I realized when I was forced to take the pause is that the things that I had told myself were really true. Like, I'm doing such a good job. I'm irreplaceable. I have to show up. I can't take a break. No one can help me because I'm the one who can do this the best. That was a story I was telling myself. And in the hospital, when I was still in the emergency room, when I learned I was going to be admitted, I didn't yet know quite how sick I was, but I knew I was going to be admitted at least overnight. And I was going to miss out on some auditions and I was going to need to find a sub for school. I realized that I had been telling myself I was so important and so irreplaceable, and they completely replaced me in about 4 hours. Everything that I had been hustling for and all the, telling myself I'm irreplaceable, and it took 4 hours. That was eye opening because I had not come face to face with the idea that I actually was trying desperately to prove I was worthy, to prove that I was deserving of the life that I wanted to live. And it was really painful. Well, I mean, it was physically painful, but it was emotionally painful to realize, wow, I'm not tending to my deep need for feeling loved and accepted. And so when I'm sharing this with you, I'm not sharing it with you because I want you to feel sorry for me. I'm sharing it with you because I want you to know I've been there. And my sincerest wish for you is that we help you learn to tend to your nervous system stress responses before you get sick, before you have the crisis, before the relationships blow up. Now, if you intentionally intend to leave relationships, that's something else. We're not talking about that, but I'm talking about ignoring the stress that you're under, ignoring the impact that it's having on you, ignoring what dysregulation is actually costing you. Because if your nervous system is trying to make you feel safe by adding more to your plate or by keeping you in a constant state of freeze, whew, there's another way. There's another way. And so let's talk about some of the reasons why we want to learn to pause. Now, there's multiple ways you can pause. You can pause before agreeing to something. I love this. This is so important. This is definitely a pause I would recommend. So, if someone asks you to do something, I learned from Terry Cole. I worked with her inside her course called, I think it was called Boundary Boss or Boundary something. I know her book is Boundary Boss, but I learned to stop the auto yes by creating a pause. So you can create a pause in the moment. And that might be like you take a deep, slow breath, inhaling deeply and exhaling deeply, just taking your sweet time to intentionally buy yourself a moment to think about how you want to respond. And then the other thing that you can do is if you still don't have any clarity on whether you're a full yes or not, you can request to get back to them. And one of the things that Terry Cole suggested, which I have implemented in my own life and loved, is creating a 24-hour rule where, unless I'm 100% certain that I really want to do something, that it's fully aligned, it's going to bring me joy, it's going to move the needle, I say, can I sleep on it and get back to you in a day? And that pause gives me time to really think and get clear. Because of my deep empath abilities, I oftentimes need that time. Because if I'm not taking that time, I can mistake other people's emotions and energy and opinions for my own. And so when I create that space and time, that pause becomes a way that I can really come into my own sovereignty and I can give a full answer from me instead of reflecting back to them what they want. And if you are an empath or you feel things deeply or you feel other people's emotions, this pause is going to be game changing for you as well. So that's one way that you can pause. The other way that you can pause, and there are three that I'm going to share. The second way that you can pause is by creating a little pause in your day. It's almost like you've hit the pause button on your life. And what I would like you to do is to create some white space. This is going to be a time where you're not consuming or creating anything for a period of 1 to 5 minutes. If you've never done this before, start with 1 minute because it'll probably feel really long. And if you've done this before, then do 5. If you tell me that you don't have time for a 1 minute or a 5 minute pause in the day, I know that's not actually true. Just don't scroll as much in the day or turn off Netflix a little bit earlier because you do have time for 1 or 5 minutes if you really want to create change and pause in your life. So, what I like to do is to set a timer on my phone. And then during that time, I just be. And if I don't have to set a timer on my phone, I don't. I just let myself be as long as I want. And that might mean that you sit outside and you just watch things go by. Or maybe it means you sit on your bed and you look at the ceiling. Or maybe it means you sit on the couch and you just look at your beautiful carpet. Whatever it means, take that 1 to 5 minute pause in your day. You could do it at the beginning of your day. You can do it over lunch. You can do it at the end of your day, but do it. My life began to change the moment I created this as a practice. So I became a single mom when my daughter was 5. And when she was 7, I became the full time single mom. It wasn't like I ever had a break. We didn't have shared custody at that point. I had full physical custody. And so it wasn't, I didn't ever get a break. I had support in the sense that my parents lived in the same neighborhood. And so if I needed, babysitter support when I was working on my master's degree, my parents would come over and they would sit with my daughter. But for the day to day stuff, I didn't have a break and I didn't have support. And when I learned to take a pause, everything changed in my parenting and my life. And so I learned that if I set a microwave timer for however many minutes she was old, let's say if she's 5 years old, it'd be 5 minutes. If she was 7 years old, it was 7 minutes. If it was 10 years old, it was 10 minutes. I learned that if she was anxious, she could watch the numbers count down on the microwave. It gave her something to do. It made it more tangible. And it also gave me time to unplug just a little bit to create some spaciousness. Because when I had that spaciousness, I showed up differently. I made more aligned decisions. I was a better and kinder mom. I was a better and kinder daughter. I was a better and kinder friend. And all it took was 10 minutes. And you have 10 minutes today too, if you really want it. You just might have to rearrange some things. But creating this pause of 1 to 5 minutes is where I would like you to start, unless you already have a practice where you're pausing. Just start today with 1 minute. After you're done listening to this episode, pop your timer on your phone and sit in stillness for a minute. And you'll just start to notice things become so much more clear. So, we've talked about pausing in terms of avoiding the auto yes, giving yourself time to think. We've talked about pausing as in hitting the pause button on your day. Now, let's talk about a little bit more of a way that we can think about pausing in terms of leadership. Okay. So, pausing is not laziness, it's actually essential. When you learn to take that breath before reacting, your body shifts out of survival mode. Now, is it going to take more than one breath? Yes, it is. It for sure is. But physiologically, what's happening is when you come back to the breath and you take conscious control of the breath, you're communicating to the nervous system, I've got the breath. And then the nervous system thinks, oh, she's got the breath. That must mean we're safe. Maybe I can stand down just a little bit. And then when that happens, the energy that your brain has been keeping in the amygdala, the fear center, the brainstem, begins to go around the brain. And that's why you have more conscious awareness. That's why you have more clarity of thoughts when you're not in a stress response. So that prefrontal cortex, the part of you that makes creative and intuitive decisions, comes back online. That's why breath work is so transformational. And that's how you can regulate your nervous system, your energy, and allow your intuition to come in even stronger. So think about these moments when you pause before you said yes to that collaboration. It probably felt more aligned, right? If you add in these pauses intentionally before saying yes to the collaboration, before replying to the client email, before launching from pressure instead of purpose, that space in between the impulse and the action, that's where your clarity lives. And when you can allow the clarity to come through, clarity is not seeing the entire staircase of steps, it's seeing the next step, it's the next aligned action. And then that aligned action leads to the next one. And a regulated leader always knows that momentum is not created by constant motion. In fact, it's the opposite. Momentum is created by a nervous system that's regulated and calm. And so when you're pausing, you're not doing the auto yes, you're giving yourself time to think, and you're pausing in your day. Those are two really important things. Now, let's talk about building in even more intentional pauses. One of the things that we can get into is we can try to rush clarity, but you can't rush clarity. You need to create it by creating these pauses. And that's how you're going to learn to trust the wisdom that arrives. So when decisions come from a place of being regulated, it's easier for you to set boundaries. They get cleaner, they get easier to hold. Your communication gets clearer and kinder and gentler, and your creativity gets so much stronger. You begin to lead things differently. You market differently. You love differently. You show up differently in your friendships because you're coming from a place of grounded intentionality when your nervous system is regulated. And this is what we practice inside the Regulated Entrepreneur. It is my new membership where we are going to learn to build and grow from that grounded, steady place where your intuition and your strategy finally can speak the same language, because clarity isn't something you find once. It's something you come back to again and again and again when you learn to listen to the body. So let's take a guided pause right now. Are you ready? Okay. Now, if you're driving, you can do this and you can just not close your eyes so that you're driving safely. But if you're not driving, invitation to allow your eyes to close for just a moment and take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through the mouth. And now feel your feet, feel the bottoms of your feet, maybe wiggling your toes, allowing them to feel the texture of anything beneath the feet, noticing the temperature. Now notice your shoulders. Invitation to notice if you can allow them to soften and drop, maybe even allowing the shoulders to roll back and down. And then take some deep, slow breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Just keep breathing, softening, intentionally releasing any gripping that you might be having. And now I want you to gently ask yourself, where am I pushing? Where am I trying to force? And then ask yourself, what would happen if I just paused instead? That shift that happens when you stop chasing the answer and you start allowing it, that is regulated leadership in action. So you might want to hit rewind and go do this exercise again and then pause, giving yourself a longer break to answer the question. In fact, I kind of hope you do. Grab your journal or your notes app in your phone or even your voice memo app and give yourself time to really think and reflect around, where am I pausing? Or excuse me, where am I pushing? And what would happen if I pause instead? So this type of pause is so essential. And we want to build this into your days. We want to build it into your weeks. We want to build it into your life. And if that tiny pause gave you even a moment of peace or clarity, imagine what happens when this becomes your weekly rhythm. When you learn to lead your business, your team, your life, your relationships from that state of grounded ease. That's what we're going to cultivate inside the Regulated Entrepreneur. It's a membership for intuitive leaders, creatives, entrepreneurs, healers, educators who are ready to grow from nervous system safety, who are ready to come into community, release the stress, release the anxiety, put some practices in place that are very simple, very doable into your daily life so that you can come back to this place of grounded, centered clarity. You'll learn how to regulate your energy, to make clear decisions, to take aligned action without the burnout cycle that used to feel inevitable. We'll be live for monthly breath work, monthly regulation reset calls, energy clearings, even psychic readings. You don't need to start over. You just need to trust what's unfolding. You can learn more by going to brendawinkle.com/regulated entrepreneur. And you can also just click the link in the show notes. And if you want to really take a big pause, invitation to come join us at the Clarity Retreat. We'll be live for 3 days, oceanfront in Lincoln City, Oregon, March 3 through 5th, 2026. And there's 3 levels you can come into this clarity retreat depending on the level of support that you're craving. And if you're even a little bit curious, I invite you to apply. Even if you don't think you're free on those days, even if you think you can't travel on those days, I invite you to apply for that retreat, because if there's enough interest, I will host an identical virtual retreat after the Clarity Retreat is live on the Oregon coast. Thank you so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, would you please share it with people that you care about? And go leave the podcast your rating and review wherever you're listening. I ask each week because it is so important for the growth of a podcast. It means so much to me. This podcast is free and it will stay free. It is an exchange of love and support, and it's a way that I want to support the community. And one way that you could say thank you is by leaving the podcast your rating and review. Thank you so much for being here. Bye for now. Until next time.